Welcome to This is Source, the podcast that invites you to explore the depths of your being and tap into your true potential. Join your co-hosts Mark Chabus and Agris Blaubuks as they take you on a journey within, sharing insights and stories about spirituality, empowerment, healing, and transcendence. This show is all about inspiring you to discover the power within yourself to create a life of purpose, joy, and fulfillment. So sit back, relax, and let's dive deep into the essence of who you are.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. How are you?
Great. We were just having an awesome conversation about empathy. And I think where we left off was just the understanding or the awareness of how empathy can show up in our life, right? Like we kind of laid the groundwork on that. And then the next question is, how does somebody who's now becoming aware of the idea that maybe they're empathic, right? So they're realizing like, oh, maybe I have that same ability to pick up on other people's emotions or other people's pressures or other people's goals or inspirations. But how do I know that? I guess the first question would be, how do I know the difference between my inspiration, my goal, or somebody else's? That probably would be a good place to start.
Mm. And I think it's easy solutions in this. So think about, for example, go for a walk alone in forest,
Right.
where there's no other people around. So you are going into your own energy field right then, right in that moment. So you can actually, in that place of being alone, you can really start to question yourself and ask questions to yourself. What do I feel? Is there any, am I emotional now? And I bet those people who are empathic to emotions, they will feel like, I don't feel any really emotions right now. It's kind of steady, nothing there. It's like, oh, am I really emotional, or actually I'm amplify other emotional people? So they can feel it. Am I really pressured to do something now? Or I don't think I have any pressures within. I feel, that this is, and also understand that, for example, if you are the person who lives together with someone, like you have significant other, you sleep in one bed. So it means you don't sleep really in your energy field, right? I don't say that you have to, you always are picking up something.
You're right.
So I don't say that you shouldn't sleep in one bed. I just saying that sometimes time by time, try to sleep alone, wake up in your energy, that there is nothing around you. Like it's like 5 feet, right? Think about sleep somewhere where is no one around you 5 feet around. So that's sort of your energy field.
Right.
So, and when you wake up, what do you feel? What is this you in your being, in your unique personal energy field? So that sometimes it's a good, sometimes to sleep separately so you can feel that sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. My wife and I recently this is such a weird thing, but we switched sides of the bed. So since we moved into our new house, we just, for some reason, like I took one side, she took the other. And then when I decided to set up a station for this podcast, I put it on her side of the room. So I set up all my stuff over here, and she said, like half jokingly, "Oh, so I'm supposed to trip over all this stuff on the way to the bed now?" So I said, like, she's the best. But I was like, you know what? You're right. Why don't I just move to that side of the bed, because it's my stuff. I don't mind tripping over it on the way over there, and you could be on that side where there's plenty of extra room. And I looked it up online, and I was looking up the feng shui, and it turned out that we were actually sleeping on the wrong side of the bed, according to feng shui, right? So I said, all right, let's make the change. And it's been 3 nights, and it's been a struggle for me to fall asleep all 3 nights. And it's not necessarily because like she's got negative energy or anything like that. It's just unfamiliar to me. And so my body is trying to process, I sleep very well. I don't have a trouble usually going to sleep. And like at night when I lay down, like it's not a lot for me to go to sleep, but these past few nights it's been. So anyway, it's just, all it is just the difference. Like I'm feeling the contrast of energy. So it's really interesting that you just said that. The other point that you made was a really good one. And that was, if you want to differentiate between your goals and somebody else's goals, go out in nature. I think that's a brilliant idea. And the first thing that popped up in my head when you said that was, don't be surprised if you pick up information and energy from the trees and the ground and the birds and all that. But they're not giving you information about goals and aspirations. They might give you other inspiration, right? But I don't think it would confuse your thoughts I think that's a brilliant idea. Go into nature and then use that as the right environment for getting clear about what you want to do. I think that's a great idea. I actually want to try to do that today, actually. I like that a lot. When I was studying to be a medium, because I knew that I had the ability to speak with, loved ones of people that have passed away, discarnate entities, beings that aren't in physical bodies anymore. I wanted to learn more about how I could become better at that. So I trained with Tony Stockwell, and he was talking about, he's done a lot of work where he's been hired by like police and to go into crime scenes to try to pick up information of unsolved crimes. And he was telling us as part of our training that if you come in too late to the scene, then you're not going to be effective at your job. So in other words, if there's like a murder scene, right, and you come in and you're trying to pick up of the energy of the perpetrator, if the police gets there before you and they walk all around the scene and they're taking notes and they're taking evidence, now you come in and you're actually picking up on the energy of the police officers that are in the room as opposed to the perpetrator. So he recommended, when you go into the furthest corner of the room first. See if you can go where the police haven't gone. Try to stay on the outskirts of where people haven't, like, walked around, and like left their energetic imprint, because then you'll be able to pick up the intelligence associated with that energy, right? So I thought that was really interesting. And something else that I learned that I wanted to talk to you about was, when I was first starting to understand all this, I learned a while ago that you can leave your energy in certain places, like much like I just said, right? So in the house, you're going in there and you're trying to feel the energy that was left behind by somebody, right? That you can go into pretty much anywhere and pick up the energy from there. And I think in the beginning stages, when people are trying to understand all this really made a lot of sense to me. When you're going over a bridge, I used to think that I had anxiety about bridges, right? But it didn't make logical sense to me, because I believed that the bridge was like built sound enough to support my vehicle and all the other cars. I thought that my car was keeping me safe, so it wasn't like I was thinking fearful thoughts, but every time I crossed over a bridge, I always felt really panicky. And it wasn't until I realized, years later, that that wasn't my energy, those were not my fearful emotions. I was just tuning into everybody else that crossed over the bridge that was petrified of that bridge. So if you go to those places, that's when you can start to play around with it and realize, like, oh, this is a place where there's an accumulation of a lot of fear, right? Like maybe the top of the Empire State Building, or going across, the Golden Gate Bridge or something like that. And you can start to realize that, oh, that's what it feels like when you're entering into the like somebody else's energetic field, as opposed to like what's your own. And you can just kind of like play around with it. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Anything to add that?
Yeah, it's I think it's also the same when if you go to those ancient places, right? Like pyramids or Mount Shasta, for example, or many other sacral places on earth. You can actually really feel the energies. You can upload that information from those places and use it as you want. That's as well. But if we really think about how we can really sense those, what we picking up from others, then this is lots been talking in human design. I took human design courses almost for 2 years, mainly to understand myself, obviously, and it leads to understand also others, right? So
Right.
and I'm glad you mentioned about thoughts, because from human design standpoint, which I find very accurate, to be honest, there are people who actually doesn't they're empathic to other people's thoughts. So basically, if they are alone, they don't think much. They actually very easy to go into meditations. They don't have any things going on in their head. They're very they have I call them clear-minded. They don't have anything going on. When they come together with someone who actually are very thoughtful, somebody who actually keep thinking about like ideas, concepts, logics. We have so much going on in those heads. If it's that head supposed to do that, then somebody who actually are empathic to the thoughts, they can actually think of situation. There is a class, right? You are sitting, like it used to be that you could sit with someone else at the same table and listen to teacher. And like if you are someone with defined inspiration and thoughts that it's actually all the time happening within you. So you actually ask questions all the time within to yourself. And somebody who actually are empathic to those, they don't, most of the times, those people who are empathic to the thoughts, they will come up with the question to the teacher, and you will sit conceptualizing yourself within in your head, and people next to you would, hey, I have a question about how this is made. And you would think, wait, why you are stealing my thoughts? That's what I was thinking about. And that the person actually pick up your question and ask your question.
Right.
This is what often happens.
Right.
And people has to be as well aware that they're not, our thoughts going in our mind too.
Right. Well, and if thoughts are energy, right, then we might not even speak the same language, but I might still be able to understand what you're thinking because on an energetic frequency level, I'm picking up those vibrations. So it's like if my body is the radio tuner, right, and I turn to a certain station, I'm going to hear what's being broadcast on that station. So if I'm in tune to you, which it's funny because it happens a lot in our conversations where we'll have like a conversation and we almost finish each other's sentences because we're both tuned in to the same vibration, right? Like the same frequency. So it's like I don't know if I'm thinking it and you're following up or you're thinking it and I'm following up. We're just both basically listening to the same station at the same time and having a blast in the process, you know? So
Yeah,
that's where it shows up in a fun way, right? Like that's where it shows up in a way where two like-minded people that are interested in what's being broadcast on that station. But let's talk about when you're in an environment where you're not necessarily interested in what that person is broadcasting, right? Because you and I were talking about this earlier. A lot of times when people are having this conversation, especially in the spiritual circles, and trying to understand energy and vibrations, frequency, information, empathy. Um, I think before you really fully understand it, it comes in as a threat, right? Like, okay, I'm empathic, so that means I can pick up on the energy and the emotions of any person that walks into the room. Well, if I don't know how to process it, and I don't know how to I hate to use the word protect, but just for lack of words to protect myself, then you're coming in, you're posing as a threat to me, right? And and then I may shut down because of that when I could have used that ability to maybe connect with that person on an unconditional loving, right? Like on the wave of unconditional love. Instead, I'm shutting down and kind of running away from that person because I don't want to catch whatever they're emoting, right? So let's talk about that.
yeah. I somehow I just imagined, because I have a little kid in my family,
Uh-huh.
right? He's nearly 2 years old, as you know, and they are very protective of their own energy field. If you think about kids, like
Hmm.
they if they don't want to, they don't engage, right? They just
Right.
they
Right.
just turn around and run away, or they just
Right.
show clear signal, I'm not going to engage with you. Don't even
Mm.
come and don't try to engage with me because I don't want to allow you into my energy field. That this is what kids does.
Right.
We as a grown-ups, we could do this, but we know that that's not how communication works and energy exchange works. So basically, if we
Mhm.
feel, and this is my perception, right? So if we
Mhm.
feel that we are receiving some sort of emotions or something, or thoughts or something which we don't really want to receive, I think first of all, it's good to be aware that it's not yours. So you
Mhm.
actually can release it easily,
Mhm.
and or even not come into your, so to kind of like some healer says as well, put the energy bubble, right? So you
Right.
don't pick up other energies. It sounds like, oh
Right.
yeah, I'm just in bubble. So it's I think it's just like the way how you do it, you just let them let within that I'm protected. I receive what I love to receive. And
Mhm.
then you set your borders. So
Right.
I think that's important as well, You just
Right.
set those borders, and you don't pick up those energies, which not necessarily always the case, because people, they don't pay attention to this, and then they just later on maybe they just understand, oh my gosh, I received so much bad negative energy which tearing me up, and I feel really now low esteem or drained, and that's when they wasn't aware from early beginning that this could happen. So I think it's just like a lesson afterwards. It's funny that I didn't mention that most important energy field which comes from sacral, right? That's the sacral is where the main energy resides, and there are people who has that energy flow, and somebody actually who are empathic to that energy. And if you are empathic to that energy, because 70%, again, percent, because that comes from human design research and everything, and I think 70% of population is people who has that sacral energy, and everyone else, like if they are not, we call it generators in human design terminology, generators or manifesting generators. Those are the people who has that energy within in sacral, and they always have that long-lasting energy. They are very good at waking up and being excited about each day, because they have already that energy which they know they are going to use, and they can last for long hours. But there are people actually like projectors, manifestators, and reflectors who doesn't have that sacral energy, and they become empathic to that energy force, I mean. And most of the times, if they live together with generator, they actually don't acknowledge that they've been picking up from someone else, taking energy from someone else all the time. And when they stay home alone, they actually are drained. They don't have energy to do anything anymore, because sometimes they're like, oh, I'm out of energy now, because where's Mark? Mark is generator, and Mark doesn't generate energy for me. So when I'm alone, I don't have any energy to follow through, because they are used to be within generators. And when it's actually people, they sometimes, people who doesn't have that energy source, they go to party, they can party till morning with another energy field, but then they have to recover for 2-3 days because they don't have that energy which they pick it up in the party anymore, so
Wow.
it could happen this way as well. So
what I hear
have to
you
be
saying is that it's good to know kind of where you stand, right? Like it's good to know who you are, and kind of have that understanding about, like, if you're one of those people that generates the energy, or if you're someone that feeds off of the energy, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's that if you generate energy, obviously you are always, especially if you do things which you love to do, you are in that amazing energy flow always. You have the energy to do lots of things. You don't need so much night sleep. You can sleep literally for 3 hours, wake up and keep going.
Right.
But those who actually knows that they don't have that main sacral energy motor or engine, they should pay attention to their sleep. They have to have at least 8 hours of sleeping time, so they actually regenerate themselves. They have to have more time to give them a rest. So So they are more like a sprinters, they like
Yeah.
people who are manifestators in human design terminology. They like a sprinters. They are like door openers. They know what the world needs. They opening the door, they find the right people who does the job, but they don't stay and generate that all the time, that work necessary for the business, for example, right? So they
Right.
just
Yeah.
they know what the world needs. They open the door, they set up start of whatever. They know that this idea is exactly what is needed for the world. And then generators always are like, oh, I love the idea, have the energy to follow, go through and keep working on this idea and to make it
Right.
happen. Generators or those creative minds to always think how I will transform this into result. So
Right.
that's why those people with energy, they have this. And usually projectors who are in human design, they are someone who we call them advisors. Usually generators, they keep working hard, then they get tired, and they go to projectors and ask the questions. They like, who? I'm tired, I don't like this job anymore. And projector, usually they are good to ask the right question. They're like, oh, so why do you, maybe you need to take some rest, or it's this is how
Right.
it works within humanity.
Right.
And projectors, they usually are somebody who waits for invitation. They wait sitting till generator or someone else will come and ask a question. They're like oracles. If they always see the truth in situations, but if they will go out without invitation and tell the truth, they will be taken wrong, because like nobody asked you why you are coming with your suggestion here.
Talking to me. Talking to
No,
me.
actually,
I
but it happens. But I think it's just nature of us, because again, it's you, because I know because why you think it's talking to you, because you have head full of thoughts, concepts, and logic behind how to realize things. But
Right.
what we don't realize, that everything that happens in our head is not meant to us. It's meant for someone else to achieve things. And we have
Right.
to wait till someone comes and ask solution. And that's
That's right.
the only time when we give those solutions which come to our head. We don't
Right.
speak up without invitation. And that's what we have to learn as humanity as well, to not go and give solutions without asking. Because nobody
I
asks your opinion, like if nobody invites you to give your opinion, so why you should give your opinion if nobody asks you?
right.
And usually we
Right.
are taken wrong with those advices. And you think,
Right.
no, I know better than I see solution, and they don't ask, so I will go and give them a lesson, but they will say you, sorry, nobody, you know,
Right. No,
it
it's
happens. It happened to me many
right.
times.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I had to learn the hard way. It took many decades for me to understand that when somebody would come in and I would see them in pain, which I don't like, obviously, to see anybody in pain. I'd see what their obstacle is, even if they're not aware of it. And I see what the solution is, which obviously they're not aware of. And then I want to get them to that point. And I realize that you can waste a whole lot of energy in that process until they, like you said, come to you and they ask you for help, or they ask you for insight, or they ask you to see something. And I think the key to being effective in that type of leadership role is being able to feel what they're feeling, seeing what their problem is, and seeing the solution, right? but asking them the question, so that they get to the solution on their own, instead of you just handing the whole thing over on the silver platter to them with all your energy in the process. You're getting them to generate the answer on their own within the realm of what makes sense to them, right? Because, like we were saying earlier, when somebody asks you for a sip of water, don't give them a fire hose. You may have access, which we do, you and I have talked about this. You may have access to all this universal wisdom and knowledge, right? But what good is it unless you can boil it down to something that's extremely practical and useful in someone's life? It's like speaking in a different language to somebody. So I think that you bring up a really good point with that.
Yeah, I think, and that's why we feel that we want to give some message. That's why we are using this universal podcast method. So people who will feel that they need to listen, they will come and listen. And we don't go directly to someone and telling their solution, which actually probably they are not ready to listen to. So I think it's important to, if you understand how our body functions, like if you understand that inspiration and thoughts in head are for us to just to process the picture, concept, ideas, knowings, whatever it comes in it, just to hold it within till somebody actually comes and asks for solutions.
Right.
This is you don't, that's how the head works. If you go to the throat chakra, that's as well the same. It functions, you have to be invited, right? It's you have to know that you have that it's time for you to talk. It's the same how you perceive this, right? When you go to solar plexus, which is emotion, that's where our emotions reside. Everyone says that emotional clarity, it's at least 3 days.
Right.
So people who are emotional, they have to wait for clarity for 3 days till they take decision.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's huge. That's what you people has to acknowledge, that in ancient times, when we were just evolving as a species, it was all about instinct, right? How to survive. Then these days, like I would say even a little bit in the past, everyone was talking, think with your head, decide with your mind, do decisions from your mind, which is, I would say, not necessarily the truth. That's how I perceive, because the most important is emotional intelligence at the end of the day. This is how, that's the wisdom, emotional intelligence, which actually sometimes takes up to, for certain people, even up to 1 month to decide how they feel emotionally to take the decision. And we shouldn't pressure anyone to take their decision. If they say, I have to think, or I have to process that, we have to respect people to give them those. Because these days, no, you have to decide right now. Unless there is actually, if you are a generator with sacral, and you're emotional, you're empathic to emotional, and you trust your gut feeling, this is what we call in human design who has defined sacral chakra, that's generators, without, they are not emotional. So they actually just trust their gut feeling. And actually, I think that's your authority and strategy, Mark. If I remember your chart correct, you always decide by your gut feeling right there, right now. And you have to listen to your gut feeling, because you react on things. You don't, you're like generators, they are like, are you hungry? Uh-huh. Do you want pasta? Mm-mm. Do you want pizza? Uh-huh. This is how you trust yourself, your decisions. This is how you involve yourself in those decisions, by gut feeling. This is how, that's your authority. And even your gut feeling sometimes says, uh-huh, but your mind says, no way, there is no logic behind. It's like, I would say, go with your gut feeling, not with your mind.
Right.
Because gut is that's something which really knows what you has to be engaged in. So there is lots of those procedures, how we trust ourselves ability to take the best decision, by emotional intelligence, gut feeling, intuition. Intuition comes only actually on the scale how people should take decisions depending on their human design. Is if person is emotional, that's the always first way of taking decisions. Emotional clarity, which takes 3 days at least. If you're not emotional, then we are looking at if your sacral chakra is defined, which is generator, then your decision is by the gut feeling. If you are not actually either one, then you go to intuition. Then you and see if your intuition is defined, if your which is spleen. If your spleen is defined, then you always listen to your intuition, because that's how you keep yourself safe. If you don't have it, then you go to, I think it was heart, which is willpower. That's where the forms those all the goals and wills and so on. It's like, it's whole theory behind this, and which actually I think it's amazing, but I got lost in the process of explaining, I guess, but you can get me back on the track maybe with
Well, I
question
think, I mean, what I was getting from what you were saying was that we have all these faculties within ourselves, right? Like it goes so much deeper than just like someone saying, oh, I'm intuitive or I'm psychic. It's, if we dive deeper with that, we see that, I mean, of course we have that ability, because think about the intelligence that goes on in our bodies, right? Like each organ in the body is its own body, is its own body, right? So like you were saying, the gut feeling, and then you took it to food, which I thought was interesting, because when I think of a gut feeling, it's like, well, a gut feeling is like, if we listen to our stomach, right, and it's telling us this is what we need, well, maybe that's because the body, the stomach is communicating with the entire body, right, which is a body made up of bodies, right, because each organ is its own body with its own field, its own energetic field, and its own intelligence. So it's always communicating with other parts of the body, and it knows if we're depleted in something. So it sends that message. It's communicating with whatever other parts of the body. And the message is that we're depleted in, magnesium. Let's just say we're depleted in magnesium. And then we get a craving for chocolate, right? And we're like, where'd that come from? Well, because that was the body's way of saying that we needed magnesium, right? And and it knows that if it gives us that craving for for chocolate, we're going to go after it and we're going to get what the body needs. And so, and hopefully we trust that, or we listen to that, and we allow ourselves that craving. If we think about that same theory in the broader scheme of life, whatever we want, right? We have to believe that our body is communicating with other elements in the universe and is lining up certain things for us to experience, because it knows that there's going to be a knowing that's going to occur, a remembering that's going to occur through that experience. So you're right when you say that we have to trust our instincts rather than logic sometimes, because logic doesn't see the same picture that intuition sees. Logic is saying, if you sell your house and all of your stuff and move your 4 kids into an RV and drive across the country, logic can't see the good that's going to come from that, right? But our intuitive self knows that, no, there's going to be lots of trials and tribulations, and you're going to meet people, and you're going to meet parts of yourself that still need to be healed and still need to be integrated into your life. And so this is what he needs to do. So I think it's important for us to follow that intuitive sense, because it serves a really important purpose. And the same thing, the last thing I want to say about, because we started off by talking about how if you're sensitive or you're empathic and somebody comes into the room and they have a certain energetic field that maybe is not compatible with yours, and you're feeling uncomfortable around that person and you want to kind of get away with them. And you brought up the thing about your son and how he, like if he's, I guess what he's feeling, your energy is off and he doesn't want to deal with your energy, right? So he's putting up the boundaries, right? Like repelling you in a sense. I think we need to listen to him. I think that maybe when those children are having those experiences, they're trusting their intuition. It's like saying, your stuff is your stuff. Don't bring that over here to me. Go work that out over there. I'm fine where I am right now. And when you're done working it out, then you can come back and we can engage. But I'm not dealing with your stuff right now. And I think what happens is, a lot of times parents, and I think you said like when we become adults, that's not acceptable. But maybe what's not acceptable is the fact that we're taught from maybe our parents in past generations that you have to give up your power. You have to talk to people even when you don't want to. You have to engage with people even when you don't want to. And because I could, when you were telling that story, I envisioned probably my own parents, but I didn't put their faces on it. But I envisioned a parent saying to a child, you look at me when I'm talking to you. You come over here when I tell you to come over here. You respect me. I deserve respect. And so what we're teaching children to do in those situations is to not have boundaries, that it's not okay for them to set up boundaries, that it's okay for other people of authority to violate their boundaries, because that's what's acceptable. And so that's maybe where things get a little screwy for us as adults, when we end up becoming people pleasers and letting people, violate our boundaries, or maybe we don't even have that. We haven't even set up boundaries because we don't even know it's a possibility. And you know what? I learned that in my 40s. I learned that we moved into a new neighborhood. Look, we lived in New York and then New Jersey, and then that story I was telling you about selling all the stuff and going into an RV. That's, as you know, that's the story of my life. That's what we ended up doing. And then we moved here to North Carolina, and we decided that we were going to build a house. So we picked a neighborhood, and there were like, I don't know, maybe 15 houses in the neighborhood. So it was like just big and open. And then more people came and started building more homes and more homes and more homes. And it was like more people were coming in. And all of a sudden, it was like, I have 4 kids. And so the neighborhood kids were coming here all the time, right? Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. It's like my house was like Grand Central Station. And I work from home. And so I was just getting so overwhelmed by everyone that was coming in all the time. And one time I came out of my room, there was two kids in my pantry, like raiding the pantry, two kids like ripping down the hammock in the backyard. Someone had left the front door open, the dog had run down the block. And like I just completely lost it. And here I am in my 40s. I mean, you would think I would have figured this out by now, but I hadn't. I realized they were not the problem. These children were not the problem. I I had no boundaries. No one ever taught me the importance of setting up my own boundaries. And just because you have boundaries doesn't make you a bad person. But that's what I was taught as a child. I was actually taught that, you do what other people want you to do. That's what's expected of you. You don't get to choose what you want to do. You don't get to lock your door when you want to be alone. It doesn't work like that. When I need you to come here, you come here and you do what I tell you to do. And you show up here and you do this. And you know what? As children, it's all about survival, and we are always seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And so if it means that I'm gonna suffer a little bit less, then fine, I'll give up my power to please you. And then I realize I'm, 40 something years old and I have a 15 neighborhood kids running my household that we built this house, like what is going on? And then I realized, oh wait, this is a big lesson for me. I need to understand boundaries. So I went to Barnes and Noble and I started buying every book I could on boundaries. I didn't even know what boundaries were or how to set them up. um, and I learned it was a really important thing, and it really wasn't that hard. It wasn't hard. Like after I established these are my boundaries, and if you cross the boundaries, there's going to be consequences. That didn't make me a bad person. That actually made me a good person because I was energetically, I was more in alignment with where I wanted to be and the kind of person I wanted to be. But these boundaries had to be in place in order for that to be possible. And so people come to the door. Nope, now's not the time. We're not having people over right now. And like because the kids were ringing the doorbell at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning to play with my kids. And I'm like, okay, new rule, 10 a.m. You're not allowed to ring my doorbell until after 10 a.m. And do you know, after a couple of weeks, if you went to my door at 9:50, you look through the blinds, you'll see three kids on my lawn just waiting for the clock to hit 10 o'clock so they can ring the doorbell. But that's what I had to do. And when you talk about empathy and you talk about energy and you talk about intuition, and you know, I feel like this is an important part of it all, right? Because we're wanting to open up to this energy. We're wanting to be empathetic and feel what other people are going through. We're wanting to open up to universal intelligence and understanding, but we also have to take control over what's coming in and what's going out, right? So it's not just about being able to differentiate if this is your energy or if this is my energy, but also being able to say, this is what's acceptable and this is what's not acceptable in terms of, because you and I had this conversation a few weeks ago about how um, I became overwhelmed with the amount of information that was coming in. And I didn't say this to anybody because I thought if I tell anyone this, they're going to think I am absolutely out of my mind. And then you and I jumped on a call, and you were basically having identical experiences to me. Just you were seeing different symbols, different beings, getting different information, but it was almost identical to what I was experiencing. And then I think you connected with Theo about it, and you were asking kind of how to navigate through all that. And the answer was that you get to decide, right? Like if there's too much information coming in at the same time, you get to say like, all right, I'm shutting it down and I want to tune into just that right now. And I want to get the information from that blade of grass, or I want to get the information from that being right there. And I think for me, there was a little bit of fear there because I thought if I shut it down, I might never get it back again. And it was also probably an extension of allowing everything to come in at the same time, like especially in the world of like doing medium work, you know, like, do you want 50 discarnate entities screaming at you at the same time, trying to get your attention so that you can communicate with a past loved one? You have to have boundaries. So just like I set up boundaries with the kids in the neighborhood and with my own children, we have to set up these energetic boundaries, right? So that we get to decide what information comes in and what we get to, feel and experience, and what we don't want to.
I think you have such a good point. So good point, and this is amazing that you uh, explained. And I think this is where we going back to this thing that we are creators of everything. We create everything, and boundaries as well. We create boundaries, and that's very important part of because many people think that life happening to them, but actually life happening through us, right? Not happening to us. It's and that's where you set those rules, and you know yourself how you feel the best in situations. You know when you want to feel these emotions, when you want to feel. So you actually are the creator of your universe, your own universe.
Right.
Whatever is house, whatever is your room, whatever is your neighborhood, you create this for yourself. And if you are not aware that you create this, then there is probably a little bit chaos out there for you to start to
Absolutely.
take care of it. So I think it's very good point. And yes, we should look more in our children and actually learn from them. I completely agree. That if they don't want to, like, I bet you had those situations in family. You have 4 kids. It must be happen like this, that even you or me made this mistake, sort of mistake, that we have a guest or friends, probably your friend, coming to your house, and kids, they don't want to sit at the table. They don't want to spend time with them. They say, no, I don't
Right.
want to. I will go to my room. I will do something else. I don't want to sit with them. And no, you will sit here, be polite. And you think,
Right.
and now looking at from this perspective, you think, wow, why I've been forcing them do what they didn't want to do, right? Actually, it should be their choice.
Right.
Or family dinners or something, like, no, this is the rule. We sit always together and eat together, whatever. You create conditions for,
Right.
you condition them into certain traditions, which is on one, like, if you think, oh, that's great, we have traditions, but if the child is completely different and he is not traditionally based, or he didn't came here to work on traditions, he actually came here to work on empowerment, right?
Right.
He came here to empower others through self uniqueness.
Right.
So you don't force those kids sit in the tribe and talk about tribe family things and so on. No, they are unique beings. They understand who they are, and then now they are forced in that environment which they don't feel belonging, really. So
Right.
it's and this is where actually humanity going, like all the new energy I see, all the kids, most of the kids I see, who, like, people sending to me their birth data and ask, hey, Agris, can you look what is my child, what his strength, what he is empathic to, they are sending, and sometimes they don't understand why the child is reacting certain way, and they're sending me and asking, can you look into? And
Right.
like, and most of the kids actually, we are going into era of individuality and empowerment.
Right.
So
Isn't that
it's
interesting?
all about individuality and empowerment through unique self being. This
Yeah.
is how we can see on social media as well, those young phenomenal kids who just being themselves creates such a huge attention to them. Lots of followers are inspired
Yeah.
by those people.
Yeah.
So this is the future of where we are going.
Definitely. And
And I
technology is
think
set up to support that,
exactly.
because like back in the day, it used to be that like we didn't have the means to support ourselves, so we were reliant on our parents. And now you have like 17-year-old kids making $100,000 and on their TikTok account, and they don't need the support of their parents anymore, so they can be as different and unique as they want, and no one's going to thwart them because they're not relying on their parents' income to support what they want to do. You know what I mean? So the whole, I agree with what you're saying. I feel the same exact way, and I don't do birth charts for children, but just in general, I'm seeing it from the perspective of the labels, um, like ADHD, ADD, autism, and you look at children and the groups that are under those labels are growing every year, right? And so it used to be like, oh, maybe there was one or two kids in the class, and then it was then it was like three or four, then it was 10, like 10 kids in the class had one of these traits, or identified with these traits. And then you have, it's like more than half the class. And then you have to think like the teachers are getting burnt out because the old ways of teaching and the old ways of communicating are not working anymore. And the kids that are having these, that have these traits, are growing in numbers. Um, I think it just lends itself to the idea that that's the direction humanity is going in. So these old structures, these old ways of doing things, the old paradigms, they're not going to work anymore. But new ones are going to come in their place that are going to support, these children. So we have to wake up. If I didn't do this work on myself, I wouldn't know. In other words, it's because of the work that I do on myself that I treat my children differently than I was treated as a child, because I don't want to be hypocritical, like read all of this stuff and learn all of this stuff and then turn around and tell my child, no, you have to go to school. Like, in other words, the other day, actually it was just yesterday, and my daughter said that she wanted to stay home, and it was like my immediate reaction was, no, you can't stay home. Like, that was in my mind, like, you can't stay home, that's not acceptable, you can't just stay home because you want to stay home. But because I've been doing the soul integration work and the mindfulness, there's a bigger gap between me reacting to something and me responding to something. So when I created that gap between her basically asking if she could stay home and my response to that, it gave me a second to process it all. And I thought, she never stays home. She has straight A's. She does lots of activities, and her body's telling her that it needs a rest. So who am I to tell her that she has to violate that information, right? Dismiss that information, I should say, that she's getting that intuitive information from her body saying she needs to stay home. And so she ended up sleeping until 12 o'clock that afternoon. And when she woke up, I came out because I was working in my room, and I came out. And the first thing I said to her was, because she had said to me early in the morning that she was sick, you know. So when I came out, I said, before you answer this question, I just want you to know that you're not in trouble. I think you made a good choice, but are you really sick? And she said to me, no, I just really needed to rest. And I said, good, and you shouldn't feel guilty about it. And and she felt great and I felt great, and she did all her work from home, so she didn't, miss out on any of her work. And then the whole rest of the day she was in a great mood. And she came home late. She had to go to do something else in the afternoon and then into the night, and then she came home and she said, I had a great day. And so my point is, I would have never allowed her to even do that as a parent if I wasn't working through my own stuff and realizing like how important it is for me to pay attention to what my body is telling me, pay attention to what the intuition that I'm picking up on. And our children, they're better than us at it. They're the new wave. Like if we're getting waking up in our 30s and 40s and 50s, they were born woken up. Like the only good thing is that hopefully enough of us are woken up enough to not coach them out of that, because left to their own devices, they're going to be better than all of us. They're going to be just fine as long as we don't talk them out of anything or try to put them into a box that they'll never fit into.
I love it. I love it. And I agree as a father of two. And my oldest, because obviously when you switch from elementary to middle school, he struggled at the beginning in middle school, and he didn't really enjoy to go to school.
Right.
And I felt it as well. I felt it and I understood. And that's actually when we made the shift. I told, listen, go to school today, try to do as much as best as you can, try to fix your math and other studies. And if you will do your best, I'm going to take you for the Thursday and Friday, because I was planning a trip to Mount Shasta. And I told I'm going to take you. I want you to be my buddy. Let's drive up from Orange County to Mount Shasta, which is 10 hours drive. I want you to be my buddy on the trip, and you will be able to not go to school. Let's have the fun together. And I hope it's the school director is not really listening. That was his absence for those 2 days, but so we had father and son most amazing trip to Mount Shasta. We went to sacral places. We meditated together. We had blast, blast. And he came back so recharged, with different approach to life, full of energy. And from that day, he became straight A in every studies everywhere. He's getting like those diploma, how you call it, awards, student of the month awards.
Wow.
In school. When we talk about this everything, and he said, Dad, that I don't even feel problem get all those A plus, because I'm so used to that it comes so easy. I don't even pressure myself even anymore. It just naturally comes, and I'm enjoying this. So it's that one, I could be strict father and say, no,
Right.
follow through. I don't care.
Right.
Do what you're supposed to do. But I'm really glad I listened to him, and I felt how much he's struggling. So actually, that I think that was the best I could do for my son. And it wasn't strictly on rules. It was just,
Right.
hey, listen to your son, take him with me, go together to your work-related trip and have fun together. And I'm really think this is how we should listen to our kids.
Yeah. You know, you telling that story just gave me the chills, because I know on an without even knowing your son, on an energetic level, I could imagine what that must have felt like to have an invitation like that, you know, because that means a lot, you know, that, oh, you could go without me, but you want me to come with you. You know, that's like, what a feeling that must have been. And also you're exposing him to, I know what you did while you were in Mount Shasta, so that's where I'm coming up with this idea, but you're exposing him to new ways of thinking, new levels of awareness, new experiences, and that's going to generate so many new questions in his mind, you know, and I mean, isn't that the whole purpose? You know, isn't that the whole idea behind them learning in the first place, is like always wanting to be curious and come up with new ideas and grow and expand, you know, so that's awesome. Glad you told that story.
I mean, you told your story about your daughter, so I felt like I should share. So, and I think that's just shows that we are going through same things. It's not like we
Right.
are sitting somewhere and just, you know, meditating or whatever, you know, we
Right.
really living our life with families, with with
Yeah. I
children,
mean,
and working on the go on ourselves within as well. So it's, I think it's just great and knowledge that we just have to listen. I have to
right.
listen.
We have to listen, and we need to be able to integrate this when we listen into our life, because it's worthless if we're not finding ways to apply this universal wisdom, this information to our relationships. And that starts in our own house. You know, if you're not getting along with your spouse and you're not getting along with your children, I mean, something is off, right? Like some work needs to be done. There's some work that needs to be done, and it, believe me, as someone that's come from, you know, from 2001 to 2007, when I read literally hundreds of spiritual books, right? Everything from Conversations with God to the Bible to Course in Miracles to Eckhart Tolle, and I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh, and I mean, just anything basically that I could get my hands on. And this was back in the day when Amazon, I don't know if Amazon still does this, they probably do, but if you order a book, then it suggests 3 more books that you'd probably like, you know, if you like that. And they group them together, and I would always just take them all. Well, every time you do that, they suggest another 4 books, and then you just have like 10 Amazon packages coming every other day with all these books. And I was just like, couldn't get enough. And that was fine. And I would hang out in my little cocoon in the basement, and I would read and I would write and I would meditate. But that's similar to my experience in the cave, right? But what good is any of that if you're not getting along with people in the same house, which I wasn't. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't. And what I the way that I coped with not having the right strategies for implementing or integrating that stuff that I was learning was just to stay away from people. And I would say they're the problem, not me. If everybody read all the spiritual books that I read, they wouldn't be so damn angry. Look at me. I'm not angry. I'm relaxed in my room by myself with no one around. And what happened was then I got to a point where I decided I wanted to share my life with somebody. So that's when I went on eHarmony, and then I met Kate, my wife. And now the interesting thing about, entering into a marriage is that they come with a lot of baggage, not her, but they come with luggage. They come with a mom, they come with a dad, they come with sisters, they come with a brother, they come with friends. And you love this person, and you don't want to just, it's impossible to bring them into your basement with you and then make them give up all those people, right? So now if you were good at keeping your friends and families that were bugging you and annoying you out of your life, well, now you're in this loving relationship with someone, and now they want you to go out to dinner with their family or their friends or whatever, and now you're faced with, you know having these difficult, I'll say, conversation or interactions with other people, and you're sitting there in judgment of other people, constantly saying, oh, you don't have your act together, oh, you have this problem, you have that problem. Even if you're not saying it out loud, you're saying it in your head. Oh, I have a good book that I could recommend for you, maybe you could get your act together. But what I learned, like, throughout that whole process was that, and it took me a very long time, right? It really took me it took me trying to run away from everybody, and then them showing up even after I ran away, to realize that maybe I'm the problem. Maybe it's not them. Maybe there's work that I need to do. And then I don't even know what it is, because I didn't even know I had a problem. I thought it was everybody else. So now what do I do? And plus, I thought I had healed from the trauma of 9/11 over that course of, 7, 8 years. So I thought I was fixed and spiritual and evolved, and look at me. I wrote a book. I'm a published author. I do talks in front of all these people, but I couldn't get along with anyone in my family. But that wasn't because of me. That was because of them. If they were involved in the type of stuff that I was involved in, they wouldn't be so difficult to other people, including myself. And so when I realized that I'm never really going to fully get away from people, and that maybe I'm the problem, I started seeking answers. I started trying to figure that all out. And then that's what led me to taking that course where I met you. And I learned in a really short period of time that it's been me the whole time. It's all me. That all these people are just showing up, and they're just mirroring all the stuff that I've been pushing down for so many years. And so, yes, I did heal from the trauma of 9/11 over the course of those years, but it wasn't until 22 years later that I started doing the work to heal from everything that happened before that, like from birth to 44 years old, right? And and that's when everything changed. Absolutely everything changed for me, because I realized that my problem with everybody else in the world is really just a part of myself that I haven't healed yet. And once I started to go through that process, and once I started to heal all those aspects of myself, and I realized that I had the ability to do that, and that I didn't actually need to get other people to agree with that process or get them to acknowledge what they've done to me. Because I've tried all that, believe me, and I was very unsuccessful. But I kept trying, but I was always unsuccessful. But when I realized that I didn't need anyone else, and that I could do the work myself, and that I could heal those parts of myself, I let everybody else off the hook after that. And now all of a sudden I'm not having the same problems that I have with people anymore, because they're not activating those parts in me anymore. There's no need for that activation. And then now I'm not mad at you anymore. Instead, I can use that empathy. It's not forced, it just happens automatically, to see you for who you really are. And I don't want to run from you at that point. I want to embrace you. I want to hug you. You need a hug, damn it. You don't need me to run from you. You're feeling pain. That's why you're acting like that. And how do I know? Because I was you. I did the same crap that you did. I'm the same person as you. We all have that dark side. We all have that contrast. It's just I was so afraid to look at that. I was so afraid to acknowledge that for so long. So it was easy for me to just point the finger at everybody else in the room. But as soon as I was able to turn that around, expose those parts of myself that I've been hiding for so many years, heal those parts of myself, it was very uncomfortable.
Man, I'm so glad you shared this. Wow. And this is like, I can totally see myself, same story, of course, with different actors involved,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
different situations. And exactly as you said, when I start to work with Thin, to see what I see in other people as a mirror and situations, then I could really heal myself from this. And it later on, you just like, oh, it doesn't trigger me anymore. Feels so good.
Yeah.
Feels amazing. Oh, wow. No, oh, I can actually, yeah, I don't care so much what they think anymore, because I know myself so much better. I know who I am. So it doesn't trigger me. So I don't need to pretend anymore.
Right.
In a sense, I don't need to please as well anymore. I can just love them as myself and
Right.
invite them to love themselves too if they want to. But if they don't, I don't bother either. So it's you know,
Right.
it's like, it's win-win.
Right.
It's always win-win. So it's amazing. I think this is where we are going to finish this episode, and it might be longer than others, but I feel that's amazing, thankful, you know, grateful for this episode, as I think we start to open up more to whoever is going to listen. And thank you for that. If you was listening till the end of this episode, and thank you so much, and looking to continue.
To be continued.
Thank you for tuning into This Is Source. We hope that this conversation has sparked something within you, and that you feel inspired to continue exploring your own journey of self-discovery. Remember, you are the source of your own transformation, and the possibilities for growth and expansion are infinite. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep shining your light and living your truth.